I'd like to call the meeting to order. Pursuant to New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Weber. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use. Ms. Burns?
Here.
Ms. Callie? Ms. Francisco?
Here.
Mr. Giordano?
Here.
Ms. Lent?
Present.
Mr. Marqueta?
Here.
Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Silikowski?
Present.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
A quorum exists.
We are going to take up the Pledge of Allegiance, and we would ask everybody to remain standing after the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stand in memoriam. Move the board acknowledge the death of Edward Miller, retired Jonas Salk Middle School science teacher, and John Shoemaker, retired Old Bridge High School teacher, and express its deepest sympathy to their family and friends. Thank you. Matt, would you care to read the Code of Ethics for us, please?
Not really. Go ahead.
All right.
I don't know where it
Code of Ethics, highlight of the month. The board will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. All right. Item number 7, approval of minutes. Agenda session of June 21st, 2022. All three of them. The regular meeting and the closed session of June 21st, and the regular meeting is of June 29th. Is there a motion?
Lent will move it.
A second?
Giordano, second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
The minutes are approved.
Oh, okay. Recognition. Move the board to recognize the 2022 boys volleyball team and coaches for winning the 4th consecutive state champion. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would like to invite our athletic director, Mr. Dan Domino, to the podium where he has certificates as we recognize proudly as a community our boys volleyball team, which did something that only the Los Angeles Lakers may have done before them. So, congratulations.
Good evening. Before we kick off the 2022-2023 sports season, Old Bridge Athletics and the Board of Education would like to congratulate our 2022 boys volleyball team for winning their 4th straight state championship. This is, yeah. This is an incredible accomplishment that could not have happened to a better group of student athletes. I would like to acknowledge the players for their commitment on and off the court. I would also like to thank Coach Hopman, Coach Bawani, and Coach Weiss for their love and dedication to this program. At this time, I would like to present our players and coaches with their certificates. Alexander Kolodzic. Michael Tribbiani. Ethan Ty. Evan Sobieski. I believe he's here. Jeremy Smith. Massimo Rocco. Robert Obdike. Troy Markle. Jacob Lipinski. Jacob Kroll. Blake Kraft. Evan Jasmine. David Flores. Nicholas Doe. Pavlo Chernyshov. Noah Brown. And to our coaches, Assistant Coach Robert Weiss. Assistant Coach Thomas Francis Bawani. And Head Coach Andrew Hopman. Again, congratulations to this team, incredible accomplishment.
So under our superintendent's report, I would like to report that today was our first day of our administrative retreat. Administrative team, including supervisors, directors, principals, assistant principals, all joined us at our grade 9 center, learning center today. And we had a very in-depth instruction, some coming from PSA. We took a course in FERPA regulations and really started kicking off the theme for this school year. Our in-service will go on for 3 days, and then we get excited to welcome back our teachers the beginning part of next week as we have our summer institute return, and our teachers volunteer and come in for additional learning. So we really kick off our in-service for our teachers the first days back for them, first and second Thursday and Friday of next week. Prior to that, our new teacher orientation will take place as well. And then we're excited. The following week, our students do return to us on Tuesday the 6th. Other important information that we went over last week that we must remind everyone, and this certainly falls under our progress toward goal, will be that our dates have been set now for our strategic planning sessions with the NJPSA. The information has gone out to your home. It's been put on social media, put on the website. We're putting it in the papers as well. That'll be Thursday, October 13th. That is next week. Thursday, October 13th. That'll take place. All the meetings will take place in the Old Bridge High School cafeteria. And the second session would be Monday, November the 14th, and the final session on Tuesday, December the 6th. All the meetings will begin sharply at 7 p.m., again, in the Old Bridge High School cafeteria, so please put that information down. And we will be sending out more information as we get closer, just so you can reserve your spot at the session. We're just taking reservations, so we're going to be turning people away. We just want to know how to make sure we can accommodate everyone and have a good count for each meeting. The one thing I am excited about this year was the 4th year in a row where I've done the initiative Superintendent provides school supplies for our needy students. This being our 4th year, and it's growing. I was able to get a great volunteer and support this year from a former student just graduated, Priya Verma. She has a nonprofit called Need It, Supply It, School It, and basically she was able to help support through her work, providing some supplies within the backpacks I was able to purchase and obtain for our students that were in need in the district. All told, so far we've delivered or had parents pick up 39 backpacks for needy families within the community, and we're going to continue to do that. I've heard from Central New Jersey Real Estate Group that is going to also look to help us, and if students need it, we're going to get a dump truck full of supplies for them if we can. So anything we can, we're going to look to do to support our students. I'm just happy that the program is growing. In the years past, my son and I had to make hand deliveries to people's homes because of the conditions of the world during last year. So it was nice to have the numbers grow up, but the parents and the families did come to us and pick them up. Again, 39 so far. That concludes my portion of the superintendent's report, and I know we have some information under special curriculum committee meeting, so we'll turn it over to that.
Thank you, Mr. Cittadino. Yes, we had a committee meeting yesterday evening, and I haven't seen a crowd like that in probably 50 years. That's how long I'm here. But we've had about 50, 60 people, and we're very concerned what we're teaching our kids at the elementary and the middle school level. So Dr. Tui, he went over the entire curriculum, health requirements for elementary and middle school, Old Bridge High School curriculum writing process, overview of the summer program, ESY, Summer Bridge Academy, Title I, closing of the academic gap, and summer updates. Dr. Tui, would you like to clear it up a little bit, because this is your area, not mine. Thank you. Don't spend too much time, maybe a couple of minutes only. Thank you.
No, I think you summarized that perfectly. I don't really have anything else to add. So, thank you.
Hearing of residents on agenda items only, limited to 5 minutes. Over to the public. Please give us your name.
Hi, my name is Lori Abdike. I just want to publicly thank Coach Weiss, Coach Tom, and especially Coach Hopman. My son started playing with the volleyball team when he was a freshman. At that time, I didn't realize that he was not just part of a team, he was part of a family. As a freshman, he was made to feel valued. That was the second year that the boys had won their state championship, and it was so exciting being part of it. My son cannot wait to start his second year with the team, but we all know what happened. The whole world shut down, but not the volleyball team. Coach Hopman continued to have Zoom practices around 2 to 3 times a week. He knew he needed to do that to give the boys hope. And even when it was confirmed that the season was shut down, they continued to practice. Even the seniors who had no reason to practice showed up on Zoom. Coach Hopman knew that he had to give the boys a sense of purpose in a crazy time. It was not okay just to go back to their rooms and feel sorry for themselves. He was there for them. In fact, you might remember this was the time we started doing all those drive-by birthdays. Well, I had reached out to Coach Chapman and asked if he would be part of Robert's drive-by. His response was instant. He said wild horses wouldn't keep him away. I saw how true that was when the man showed up in a Mustang. Robert's junior year, which was the third year of their championship run, was hard for the boys. Most of them had not played together, and everywhere they went, there was a target on their back. One school even played carnival clown music as they were warming up. Coach Hartman took this as an opportunity to teach the boys about mental toughness. He taught them to focus on the task at hand and to drown out all the negativity. What an amazing life lesson. Those boys worked hard. They did not just practice 6 days a week. They would get together after practice and watch hours of film. They would meet after practice and go out to dinner and discuss strategy. As I said, they were a family. I'm not sure if you all know this, but every senior on the volleyball team gives up his senior trip to Disney because of that's the way the season falls. And I don't mean that they put down a deposit, get the insurance, and they wait to see how the season goes. It is a hard no from the beginning. That's what their volleyball family means to them. They don't even hesitate. This last season was the hardest. Again, they were walking around with the target on their back because I believe they went into the state finals only ranked number 7 in the state, but it didn't stop them. Coach told them to take one game at a time. I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge another driving force behind the boys. Their fans. I don't know if any of the fans are out there watching any of the students from the high school, but you were the driving force behind them. If it wasn't for the energy of our amazing nights screaming and cheering from the stands, we might not have had this last championship. The boys did not want to let you down. You believing that they could win again fueled their fire. If you have not witnessed the last championship, I suggest you go and watch it on YouTube. It is undescribable how the fans stormed the field after that win. Coach Hartman, Coach Tom, and Coach Weiss, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank you. We know what you've done for this team is amazing. What you have done for my son is given him championship rings, life lessons, lifelong friends, and a high school career that is one of a kind. Thank you for everything you have done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Koji Hamanaka. I would like to read a prepared statement regarding the proposed curriculum that you're about to vote on tonight. Good evening. My name is Koji Hamanaka, and I have 2 daughters entering the 1st and 3rd grade. I have lived in Old Bridge for 13 years. During that time, much in the world around us has changed drastically, and not always for the better. We have watched a steady increase in the obsession with sex of all types, from the music on public radio that glorifies sexual promiscuity to TV ads that basically sell sex, let alone the TV shows that claim to be family-friendly. It seems we can't get a break from it. We are now living with its disastrous results. We live in a country where 1 out of every 4 teenage girls is infected with an STD. Currently, the consequences of promiscuous homosexual behavior are unfolding before us in real time with the recent monkeypox outbreak. Today, there is an ever-growing obsession to find identity in the wrong places, whether it's racial, sexual, or gender. If you approve this curriculum, you're only adding fuel to this identity crisis, leading children away from finding their true identity. This curriculum opens the door to a dark path for our children in Old Bridge schools. It will turn our Old Bridge teachers into serpents in the garden that peddle lies as truth to innocent and naive children. This curriculum is dressed with pretty words like acceptance and inclusivity and masquerades as love. Only in truth, it's unloving and uncaring. This curriculum teaches the you do you philosophy, or in other words, I don't care what you do as long as it doesn't affect me. Where's the care and love in that? The children who fall for it will one day realize the fruit they were given was poison, hopefully before it's too late. This curriculum is a stumbling block to our children and will hinder their spiritual, emotional, and mental growth by removing them from reality and feeding them the lie that they can create their own. In essence, it teaches them they can become God and make their fantasy become real. Instead, they need to be taught how to face the real limitations of life, how to navigate, cope with, and overcome the struggles that come along with them. That is how you build the resiliency you say you strive for in our children. This curriculum points them towards a lifestyle that advocates ignoring real limitations and masking the hardships of life with self-gratification. A lifestyle where one can take some medications, carve up their bodies, and keep on pretending everything is fine. Take a serious look into the statistics in transgender community and you will find rates of depression, increased rates of depression, suicide, lasting health problems from hormone treatments, and irreversible physical effects from puberty blockers. Even more, these gender-affirming procedures do not resolve the mental health issues they are claimed to cure. There is no lasting joy to be found there, maybe fleeting happiness until the walls of fantasy come tumbling down. If we truly love our children, isn't it our duty to protect them from such harm? Isn't it our duty to prepare them to face life, to face reality? If you plan on voting to approve this curriculum, I ask that you reconsider if it's what's truly best for our children. Isn't the future of our children worth more than a bit of funding or a few grants? At the end of every school message we receive, we are told, be well, be kind, believe in Old Bridge. Here's your chance to give us something to believe in. Here is an opportunity to defend and stand up for our children. Prove to us that our children's lives are more important to you than money and school rankings. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Mitzi. I have a son going to kindergarten here in Old Bridge. I just want to point out, before you guys vote to approve this curriculum, that there has been multiple other school districts in the state of New Jersey that have either chose to opt out, create a resolution to oppose the standards, request revision, or send at-home packets for the teacher, for the parents to teach their kids these very sensitive subjects. So there are options for us. It does not have to be approved today. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who cares to speak? Go ahead.
Kelly Ellis Foster, Old Bridge. I also wanted to say a few words about the curriculum being voted on this evening. The curriculum meeting last night unfortunately turned into chaos. While there was parents there who wanted to engage in civil disagreement and discussion, it was overtaken by those who only thought their opinions were the right opinions. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there on the topic, but that's not my intent to try to change people's mind, but ask that we come to a point where we can tolerate other people's opinions with respect. I applaud the compromise by the administration for the elementary and middle school. Parents can opt out of any content they deem sensitive or they do not want their child to learn in school. That's the parent's right, and the district respects that right and has a solution to address it. A 2020 study conducted by 2 Montclair State professors showed comprehensive sex education, like any other subject, is most effective when it builds, creating an early foundation and advancing with developmentally appropriate content and teaching. Programming implemented in earlier grade levels has helped prevent child abuse. It also led to improved self-protective skills, improved knowledge of appropriate, inappropriate touching, increased parent-child communication, and increased disclosure of abuse. This is important because according to the Prevent Child Abuse NJ, in New Jersey, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will fall victim to child sexual abuse before the age of 18. State data reports 80% of child sexual abuse cases are never reported to the authorities. In the meeting last night, one parent asked Mr. Ciudadino how many cases are reported, and just seemed to give the indication it was just a small number. That's okay. The idea that it's okay to let just a few kids get abused is unthinkable. There's also concern by some parents about the LGBT curriculum, which they have every right to have that view. But again, I reiterate, if a parent does not want their child to hear about that in the classroom setting, they can opt out of those days. According to the 209 study conducted by Security.org that used data from the FBI's 2017 hate crime report, 11.5% of hate crimes in New Jersey are motivated by sexual orientation or gender identity, ranking New Jersey as the 11th highest state for the rate of bias-fueled crimes. In addition, in 2019, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released the National Youth Risk Surveillance Report. The report from the national data showed that many LGBTQ youth continue to suffer higher health and suicide risks than their peers. The health curriculum provides a supervised space to discuss how we are all different in many different ways, but it does not provide steps how to turn somebody gay or into an LGBTQ. That is not how it works, and that is not such a thing. But again, if parents do not want their child to be included in that discussion, they can use their parental rights and opt out. A board member last night said there's other ways to be inclusive without this kind of discussion. I would like to know exactly how that would work. If you talk about inclusion and diversity, sexual orientation must be a part of it because it is a part of who our children are. Not all, but there are some, and to not recognize them is not being equal to all children. Again, at different levels, it is talked about differently. Our children today are exposed to much more than previous generations. According to a 2021 report by Common Sense Media, from 2015 to 19, media use for tweens, which are ages 8 to 12, grew by only 3%. But from 2019 to 21, alone, media use grew by 17% for this group, resulting in an average of 5.5 hours of screen media per day. This is an important fact because children are exposed in multiple ways to information that parents cannot monitor. I can have a minute. Okay. Your child's devices may be blocked from certain content, but kids on the bus, lunch, or the team may not. In a town the size of Old Bridge with a diverse population, there will never be one way to do things. I strongly support every person's right to their opinion and their right to speak freely without fear of retribution or violence. As the curriculum has put forth, we should demonstrate healthy ways to respond to disagreements or conflicts with others. In closing, for those parents who do not want their child to have this information from a structured classroom setting, they can use their parental rights and opt out. I believe the board and the administration has found a solution that would address the concerns of the vast majority of parents.
Don't get nervous, I'm talking about the bridge. Last year was my first year as public relations coordinator. I'm Scott Mazzella. I teach 6th and 7th grade social studies at Salk. I thought it was a really good start last year with the 3 social media platforms we created with Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I just wanted to put them up here because a lot of people still don't know about it. I don't know if the camera can zoom in on that. But we're on Twitter, where I'm always reposting very positive things happening in the classrooms. The teachers are always posting really cool and innovative things they're doing with your kids. We really are doing amazing things in this district. I know we focus so much on other things, but there's some cool stuff happening. So if you follow Twitter, I'll retweet teachers and what they're doing, and coaches and games, and of course all the events happening in the district. On Facebook, it's more big events and photos, and Instagram, I put a lot of the pictures I take at events and things like that, and each one has a different following, it seems. I think a lot of students are on Instagram, a lot of parents on Facebook, and everybody's around Twitter. So please join those and follow them. Now, I do want to say one thing as a teacher. This summer, I took my wife and kids to Disney for first time in a long time, and I went on that Millennium Falcon ride. I was like 10 years old. I was like, I got to fly. I was a pilot. I was so excited. My kids were like, what? But that's how I feel going into the school year, too. I think a lot of teachers feel that way as well. I teach U.S. history, and I'm always showing the John Adams miniseries, and they say in a speech that, we all have our passions. We get up to this microphone, and we have a torrent of passion and righteousness, and we get up here. But we make shipwreck of conscience. And I worry sometimes still, like I was last year, that some of the kids watching at home don't think we have their backs. As a teacher, I welcome everybody. I mean, and I don't take your pronoun at the door. I don't care. I don't care about you. I care about you, the person. I worry we get too bogged down in all this stuff. Think of all the stuff in our lives that we enjoy. every day, like Walt Whitman's poetry, right? He's not identified by who he loved. He was identified by his poetry. I'm sure some of you sing Freddie Mercury and Queen songs in your car. He's not identified by anything but his talent, right? And, we have Tim Cook. How many of you have an iPhone in your pocket? You don't throw it away because he's gay, right? So I get worried that we get caught too much up this. We have so much to do in this district. This district's awesome. We have a strategic planning coming up in October. I hope people come out there and plan for our real future, not the negative future, the real future of Old Bridge, which is very bright, and we're still building that bridge. And if you follow this, you're going to see all the good stuff we're doing. So let's get on board for a positive start to the school year. What do you say? All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I'll be quick. Jill DeCaro. One question I had is just the one question that I had asked last night, and I'd like to, I'd like it to be addressed again tonight at the public meeting. What happens if the curriculum does not get voted on? Like, what happens if we leave here tonight with no approved curriculum? I'd like that to be addressed prior to you guys voting so that every board member does understand the implications or whatever of not voting for the curriculum. And that's all I ask. Thank you.
Do you want me to speak to it now? Yeah. These are all state mandated curricula. However, the district will not be shut down if you don't pass any of the many curricula that are listed for action tonight. They are courses of study in this school district. They are state mandated. They do require 5 affirmative votes of the Board of Education, and they're all up for vote tonight. Ultimately, yes, there is state review in the CUSAC process, and obviously state aid, as always in every district, is conditioned on compliance with all the laws that are applicable to the school district. If the board wants more time, or if the board votes any of these curricula down, they would need to continue the discussion and figure out what to do next. No one's going to be carted away, but it is a mandatory curriculum that has to be dealt with either sooner or later.
Specific deadline that the state has to get a decision from us.
There is not so much a specific deadline as there is a school year. You will be launching each of these curricula on, is it the 6th or 7th? On Tuesday, September 6th. So, assumedly, and the point of them being on the agenda tonight is that you'll have a curriculum for every course that you're offering in place by Tuesday the 6th. But no, there is not a specific deadline that carries penalties or
Right.
by which you must pass every curriculum.
Now, I understand the planning for the introduction of whatever is approved or not approved is going to be in May, that the actual courses would be delivered.
That is a question for Dr. Tilley and Mr. Citadino.
The 2.1 standards would be addressed in May and delivered in May. After.
So there is some time, if possible, if the board chooses to review this, they can review it.
Yes, the only caveat, and this board asked this administration way back when we had our conversations about this, that we present a curriculum that provided, met the standards, but also provided choice for family. We did that. The part of the plan that we're looking at to provide even greater transparency and flexibility for the parents is that once the course is approved, we would take the dates, in-service dates that we have coming up, and use teachers' educational time at that point where they're working with us to make those model lessons, so that we can then publish them on our district website for parents to review prior to making the decision to opt in or opt out. And if they're we don't have it approved by that time, we could do it at a later time, obviously giving parents less time to review, but that might come at a cost to the district, would be cost of release time substitutes for those teachers.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask a question, if that's okay. Are students who might have health, the first marking period, are middle schoolers or high schoolers, will they be affected by not voting yes?
Yes, those students who would have standard 1, 2.1 in their curriculum, they would be receiving the previous curriculum.
Is there anyone else from the public who cares to speak?
Okay. Amy Karubi. I just have a quick question. I know that there are a couple of districts that everybody's mentioned has opted out, and I'm wondering why this one, why Old Bridge didn't have that opportunity to opt out, or is there an opportunity to? And if there is, why haven't we opted out, like the other districts, of this curriculum? If I think a lot of people are in agreement, they're not really comfortable with it.
Yeah, there are two districts that are making news lately about that issue. One is just south of here, where they are going to, or purporting to go to, an opt-in platform. The problem with that, again, we've had these discussions over the last couple of years, and we are held subject to a lot of state laws and regulations. So the problem with an opt-in platform is that it's not authorized by statute. And with an opt-out platform, the default is that your child is attending a mandatory curriculum in your school district, unless you opt out. With an opt-in, the model is that the default is that your child is not attending a mandatory class in school, unless you opt him or her in. That's a very different setting. So the opt-in is not going to survive review under the one statute that controls all of this, and says that, has said since 1979, that every parent has the right to opt his or her child or children out of any portion of the health curriculum in any year. All they have to do is sign that form and say, my kid's out of this part of health, and everyone has that right. The other option that has got some headlines lately is a town that is 2 counties south of here, and they have hatched a plan to do what we did in 2020, which is to offer asynchronous learning opportunities on a remote or at-home platform for the entire curriculum. In other words, mom and dad, here's the packet, teach your kids. Happily, we're out of the pandemic as far as education in New Jersey goes, and to assign home instruction for a mandatory curriculum, again, just isn't authorized by the statutory structure under which every school district operates. So yes, there have been headlines on those 2 options. Unless there is a change in law, neither one of those options will end up being the case in those districts as the school year pans out. Obviously, there are tons of feelings and many options being discussed and considered, but the option that is consistent with the applicable law is that the curriculum is mandatory, but the opt-out option is absolute for every parent and guardian.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who cares to speak? Seeing no hands, I'm going to close the public portion.
Richard Mitzi again. I have one question. You guys keep saying there's an opt-out option, right? Am I mistaken that it's going to be sprinkled over almost every other subject?
Dr. Toomey or Dave?
The question we're talking about, or what I believe we're talking about, is the health curriculum. And the health curriculum is not sprinkled or placed across any other area of the curriculum. The health curriculum that we're talking about, you can opt out of standards 2.1, 2.2, or 2.3. It makes no difference to us, but the opt-out we're providing to parents is in 2.1, which is the personal health education, which does include gender identity.
Okay, we're allowed to opt out of 2.1, but what about 2.2 and 2.3? And isn't that going to be being taught at the beginning of the school year?
You can opt out of 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, but that really didn't have any significant changes. And for clarification, the changes we're talking about took place in 2.1, and that's why we're reiterating with parents, because they always could have opted out since 1979, that you can opt out of 2.1, 2.2, or 2.3.
Just to clarify, 2.2 and 2.3 will be being taught at the beginning of the year, right? That's going to be.
Yes. So at the elementary level, they'll be caught. You have to remember that in elementary, health is once a week.
Yes.
And they'll start off in, imagine 2.2, work their way through that. 2.3. Again, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Tui, just raise your hand when I'm wrong. I believe 2.2 is personal health, so exercise, eating right, those type of things. 2.3 is more of personal safety health, drug awareness, not talking to strangers, looking both ways before you cross the street, stuff like that.
And the lesson plans for 2.2 and 2.3 won't be available until the ones for 2.1 are available?
They're not available because you have to realize the way teachers work. So teachers get the standards we get the standards from the state. The state says develop curriculum. We work with our teachers and they assist us in developing curriculum. And then after they have that, they go to work in our classrooms every day. And prior to going to work for the classrooms every day, they develop lesson plans based upon that curriculum. We don't have the teachers across every subject that they teach developing the lesson plans for the whole year ahead of time. They're responsible for developing lesson plans within 2 weeks prior to teaching a lesson. So in this situation with 2.1, what we're doing is we're taking a few teachers aside from what we talked about, have them develop a model curriculum so that every health and physical education teacher in the elementary level will be delivering the same exact lesson on the same exact day, so parents are assured of when they're opting out of something, what they're opting out of. That's not something how we traditionally operate with our teachers, because teachers have their ability to develop their own lesson plans.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion. Oh, okay. Thanks for telling me. Appreciate it.
Mr. Weber, can I just say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
After we've already closed it, I do want to just say something about Scott Mazzella. Like, if you're new to Scott coming up in his position, this is only his second year doing this. Just kind of give him a shout out. Scott is not only a published author, he does work in weather phenomena. That seems to be his passion, aside from teaching. So he has 2 books on weather phenomena that's impacting New Jersey, traditionally hurricanes. And what makes him exceptional at doing this job is his background in media. He worked for Atlantic City News. I'm not sure of the channel. Hold your fingers. So Embassy 40 in the greater Atlantic City area. He was on their news staff there. So it's when you have a teacher who's in an area, it's great that you can use them in the public relations sector for our work. So we're very lucky to have him. You reminded me something with the tweets and the Twitter, and you retweeting everything. A parent from the meeting last night did ask, about the ESSER program. How was it advertised? And we talked about that of the 1,200 students that were invited, they received phone call, email, text message, and phone call, email, text message 3 times leading up into that, three different phases. So it's 9 notifications. Additionally, through social media, and just I kind of went through it, looked at it quickly, there were 10 social media tweets about the ESSER program leading into it throughout the course of the program that I could find quickly just putting ESSER in the tweet search and going through Old Bridge. So the information is out there. We'll always work to make it better and make it more acceptable. But I think too, in looking at that, there's a lot of things we're competing with in the summertime. I have 4 boys. I know what it's like. That they went through the same learning loss situations that we did. But And one son wanted to go to lacrosse camp, so, coincides with whatever other camps going on. Other son wanted to do a more of a work study type program. So there's competition, and there's family vacations. I'm sure you take part in. So it's hard to get students in the summertime that want to come into school and they don't have to go. And that's one of the things that wasn't mandatory. It was available, and I do know that parents value the time during summertime to travel and give other opportunities for their children to learn things beyond what happens in the classroom. So, again, we'll continue to expand our opportunities and to share the information as we have it.
Thank you. Policy? Sorry. We have quite a number of items, which are, as you can see, are mandated on the top portion of it, and are new policies which are reviewed for us by the firm of Strauss SMA Policy Alert. And again, as discussed at our agenda session of 8/18 in 22 by the Board Attorney Chris Parton regarding Executive Order 302, repeating the mandated testing of unauthorized, unvaccinated staff working in K-12. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion to approve? I'll move the item. Is there a second?
Giordano, second.
Is there any discussion from the board?
Yes, I'd like to say something. So once again, I'd like to apologize for those that were affected by injection-related injuries and those that have lost employment for not complying with the fake tests that were required by the state.
Are there any other discussions? Hearing none. Roll call.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay. Item 16, curriculum professional development. Is there a motion from anyone?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Separating number 3 for discussion and voting purposes, please.
All right, this is all of item 3. From design technology all the way down through standard base report card. Correct, Matt?
Yes. You want me to speak, Mr. Weber?
Not yet. All right. Yeah. All right.
Just for clarification from our attorney, like any other area, you can just separate certain content areas, right? If you
Yes,
wanted to.
once we get to that, we'll move the other ones first, but once we get to discussion of number 3, any board member can specifically vote on any line item in number 3, and there are many of them, so they would just identify them by name if the board member so chose.
One, 2, 4, and 5.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
No for one, yes for the rest.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1, 2, 4, and 5 pass.
All right, then we go back to item 3. Discussion?
Okay, Mr. Weber. Yes, I'm separating, what I would like to do is separate grades K through 9 during the health curriculum, because I will be voting no on that.
K,
I'm sorry, 8, I'm sorry.
K through 8?
Yes, which is elementary and the middle school. I think we have to go a little further, discuss this a little deeper, and have the community a little more involved before we go any further with this, because I will be voting no on this, totally.
Can I ask a few questions? I'm taking that as a yes. So unfortunately, I was not able to make the curriculum meeting. I had scheduled a vacation not knowing that there would be a meeting. Was there any specific language that was mentioned that was not covered by opt-out that was problematic according to the public?
Okay, I don't have the answer to that, but, you know, being at the meeting last night and seeing 50 or 60 people express their feelings, all I know is that even with the opt-out, their children still have to go back to school and deal with the kids that went through the curriculum. And there's going to be a lot of problems over here. I can see this ahead, okay? I think we have to do a little more research, a little more. In fact, I plan to hold a meeting, I believe, the 12th, which is the night before the next curriculum meeting or agenda meeting, okay? This way the public can vet, do whatever they want to do, and we have to make a decision that the following night, or the following night.
Are we in danger of not having the new curriculum then and using the old curriculum for the beginning of the school year, or can this be done before the new school year starts?
I don't have that answer, but I feel it's not going to affect education at all, okay? Being held off for a week or two.
Yes, we will not have the new curriculum by the beginning of the school year. So we'll be using the old curriculum to start the school year. There will not be any of the lessons or outline proposals that were issued last night. And at some point in time, we will have to adopt the new standards, as Mr. Parton referenced previously.
2.3 and Section 2.2, were there any change standards from the states on those two areas?
I believe the 2018 standards had 4 areas. This new set of standards only had 3, again, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. And as outlined last night, the 2.1 area was the major area of concern for parents, which is why we pushed back the instruction of 2.1 until later.
My point is, Jim, if they were not changed, those particular two standards, 2.2 or 2.3, if there were not standard changes required, then anyone could still proceed on what's in place, correct, without losing anything.
There are topics that are very similar in 2018 standards that are also in the 2020 standards. So yes, we can proceed forward with similar type lessons from the 2018 standards if we were going to push it off for a week or two.
But the clarifying question is, 2.2 and 2.3, are there any updates in 2.2 or 2.3?
There are updates across all 3 levels, so yes.
Was it content or specific language that was the issue with the new curriculum?
That's a tough question. I think it's a little bit of both. The content did change. From the language utilized in the new standards did change. The content and the items that were covered from the 2018 standards did not. So if you compare the 2018 standards and the 2020 standards, the content overall is very similar. Some of the language and the areas that are highlighted in the 2020 standards using very specific language is what did change for the 2020 standards. Sure.
Yes, I have a question. At last night's curriculum meeting, one of the reasons I'm pushing back on improving this is for the middle school opt-outs. I know the K through 5 was pretty cut and dry. There's a letter that goes out. I'd like to see the administration have more of a formulaic approach to opting out for the middle school, because it just seemed as if parents would have to go into the curriculum and pull out individual subjects. Not everybody has access to a computer, and everybody's computer savvy, so I'd like to see a little bit more formulaic way of opting out for middle school.
So what we do anticipate after feedback from last night's meeting is that the 2.1 standards, it's typically a 9-week window for the health classes. So the 9-week window to 2.1 standard would be provided at the beginning of the 9 weeks. the 2.2 in the middle and the 2.3 at the end. And parents, as mentioned last night, would have the option to opt out of all of the areas, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, or just specific areas in 2.1. We are currently working on formatting that, so that can be done relatively easily through the creation of a separate form, where parents would just have a checkoff box that they are opting out of either the 2.1 or all of health. At that point in time, we would have to work with the administration, because if you're only opting out of 3 weeks of health, then those 3 weeks would have to be accounted for. We can't have students roaming around Jonas Salk Middle School and Carl Sandburg because they opted out of that respective health section. So that's something we have to work on with the middle school principals on.
Any other questions from the board for Dr. Turi? Thank you, Jim.
Yes, if we don't push this through tonight and get a 5 vote, what I plan to do is sit down with a couple of volunteer board members and sit down with the administration and come up with a new plan for the next meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
What you're proposing a motion to table?
Not table. I'm voting no on all curriculum from K through 8 when it comes to health. The rest of the curriculum is okay because the kids are still going to be doing what we did last year or the year before. Okay?
Yes, if this doesn't move forward.
This is just a help. Go ahead.
If this doesn't move forward, then that means that the discussion, like what started last night, would continue between the board and the administration and the parents and guardians.
Yes, with legal counsel. You're going to be there. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay. Roll call.
No, yeah, discussion.
All right.
Yes, so the answer to this problem is most likely, like most things, kind of down the middle. Now, going over the curriculum for the health through all grades, there were some similar things that I've experienced going through school, like the anatomy and going through puberty and things of that nature. But now, of course, as we've seen from the governor, and Chitterelli challenged him on this during the gubernatorial debate, is that they're going to add things that have nothing to do with anatomy and biology, such as pronouns and gender identity. And I mean, I'm tolerant, 22, I've seen, all sexualities and all things like that. But to be teaching it to young kids, and they're like sponges and they might not even know what they are, and to just add that component to them at such a young age isn't appropriate. Now, we know it's controversial because we are giving you the chance to opt out. We don't give you, or as far as I know, we don't really allow you to opt out of English, science, history, or subjects like that due to that. They're factual and necessary for learning. But the fact that you can opt out is what's affecting my vote. Now, if you remember when we sold the Nike base, I was all for selling the Nike base, but because the funds went to capital reserves, I voted no on that because that's part of the vote. And part of this vote is the opting out option. And I'm all for choice, and if the Old Bridge community opts out in a very high percentage, that's going to send a message to the state and the nation, most likely. We'll see what happens. And one thing I want to say. So as you saw from the last thing that we voted on, I am very much against state mandates and local board of educations not having control. But this is very different from forced injections and fake tests that aren't for diagnostic purposes. So considering all of that, I think I'm probably going to vote yes, or if we're going to delay it, because that's not a problem. If we delay it, we're delaying the inevitable if there are certain things we can't change no matter what. And I remember a lot of people are nervous about the kids that do learn it, they're going to spread it around to others, and same thing with teachers. What's written in the curriculum for history, science, English, and those subjects, teachers could go off topic all the time and put their own agendas, You know, I've had teachers, I've had professors, and they've done the same thing, and that is not what this vote is about. It's just about the language that's written, and like I said, the anatomy and biology is okay, but things like pronouns and gender identity don't have a place for young students. So, if we could delay it, I'd be in favor of delaying it. But eventually, whatever the law says, and like I said, 100% could opt out. So it's not mandatory like other things that I've been against in the past. So.
Is there anyone else?
That's it.
Yes, very well put. But again, we still have to come up with a final scenario saying yes at the very end. I think it's up to the community to come up with their input before we make that decision. Thank you.
I have a question. So are we allowed to manipulate the curriculum where we change what's taught, or we're just talking about the language in which we present it?
You are required to implement the curriculum, so you're really talking about the form of how it is. It really comes down to what age appropriate means, the manner of delivery of the curriculum.
And we're able to vote on everything on item number 3, except for that one piece Mr. Silikowski mentioned, K through 8 for health, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Leo?
I have something, but I'll put it under old business.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right. One question that I have is, we were told last night that there's an item which is 2-1, now listed in 2-1, but it can be also given as 5-1. So I'd like a comprehensive explanation of how something can be appropriate for the 2nd grade, and then you get moved up to the 5th grade. Will they have taken it in the 2nd grade and forgot it by the 5th, and we have to reinforce it? I don't understand.
So the way the standards, they're divided up into 3-year increments. So it's 2nd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, and, sorry, 1 4-year increment, 12th grade. So the standard has to be, the standards that outlined by the Department of Education has to be introduced to the students prior to the end of 2nd grade. In, again, 5th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade. So that's the way that the standards are delineated. As the curriculum is written, we do have some flexibility in terms of when that content is presented to the respective grade levels. So if it's a topic that might not be appropriate for a 3rd grader, it can be addressed in 5th grade, and something that might not be appropriate for kindergarten can be addressed in 2nd grade. But overall, the way that the curriculum is constructed is similar to how it has been constructed in previous years, with topics that were introduced along similar grade levels across the 2018 to 2020 standards. So there is flexibility by the district as to when topics are introduced, but you cannot put all of the grade 5 standards into 4 days of the 5th grade level. It won't all fit. So it does have to be spread over 3 years, and there is some flexibility, which is why we introduced the concept of presenting the lessons in advance, so that the parents can see exactly what will be taught in 3rd grade, 5th grade, all grades, K through 5, and then obviously 6th, 7th, and 8th grade would be done incrementally throughout the marking period.
All right. Thank you, Jim. My personal opinion is, and the way I'm going to vote is, I think that having another month of reviewing this process cannot make us any worse off than we are now going in, but it will be a month of time that the public can get more information. We can get sites that are easier to understand, and people can rethink how they feel about it. Obviously, if we get an 80% opt-out rate or something like that, even a campaign board or whatever you can do, you may be more effective that way than trying to do it and changing the law that we've been gifted to that we really can't change. So I'm going to encourage my youngest board member that if he wants that to happen, he would have to vote in the negative, because otherwise we may not have the votes to say no and go forward with a month's worth of additional discussion. So I will be voting no.
Wait. Sorry.
Okay.
One more thing.
So on item number 3, minus health, Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we could vote on that first. Yeah.
Okay, so on item number 3, minus health and phys ed, grade K through health and phys ed, health-family life, grade 8. Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Wait, just for clarity, we're voting
Voting on item number 3 minus
everything but that.
Everything but that, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Slade? Mr.
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Silikowski?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mr. Weber? So item number 3 minus the health K through 8 is passed. Now on the health, item 3, health K through 8, Ms. Lent?
No.
Mr. Marqueta?
No.
Mr. Slade?
No.
Mr. Silikowski?
No, thank you.
Ms. Burns?
I know that the time for discussion is over. I just wanted to clarify, because I was not at the curriculum meeting, I did not feel that there was a committee report sustainable or sufficient enough for me to make my decision. I'm going to vote no in order to continue the discussion for a month.
Ms. Francisco?
No.
Mr. Giordano?
No.
Mr. Weber? So item number 3, health K through 8, fails.
Just for clerical issues, I just want to make sure, that also includes health, human development, grade 6, health, adolescent, social issues, grade 7? Because I think when you listed it, you just said health K to 5, and then health, grade 8.
I just reiterated what Mr. Silikowski said. He said K, he said
K
grade
through 8.
Grade 8.
Just the health portion.
But there's no like K to 8 one line, so it's...
So, yeah, okay. We're right. Just a big line. Okay, so by the looks of it, Mr. Weber, we will be holding our next meeting the night before the next agenda meeting. The public will be invited, place to be announced, I don't know yet. Okay, it's up to the administration and the board where we want to go with this one. But thank you for the vote, board, and I'm sure the community is very happy with this.
Discussing item 17, finance, we have 1 through 17. Any discussion, or is there any, I will move it actually. Is there a second one, second opinion? To
Second.
move? All right. And
Can I just
board-
ask the board members to mention your name when you say second, because I can't...
Slade, second.
Thank you.
Right, Weber moved. And is there any discussion on the items for finance? All right. Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
No for 12 and 13, yes for the rest.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 17 pass.
Item 18, athletics. Items 1.
Lent will move it.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 pass.
Non-certificated personnel office, item 19. Item 1,
Lent will move it.
Weber will second. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Item 20, non-certificated personnel, operational, items 1 through 8.
Giordano motion.
I'll second. Weber. Discussion, items 1 through 8. Hearing none. Roll call.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 8 pass.
Non-certificated personnel, other, item 21, items 1 through 13. Is there a motion?
Marqueta will move it.
Is there a second?
Slade second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yes, I'd like to separate number 1 for discussion.
Okay. Any other? All right, Matthew, let's go item 1 first. Move that separately.
Okay. Move the board approve the retirement of the following paraprofessional aide with deep appreciation for the years of dedicated service to the district.
All right, we can,
Lisa Rifkin, Southwood paraprofessional, 26 years. I wish you a lot of luck. This, not only me, but the entire board. Remember, one door opens and another closes. Good luck. Thank you for your service.
and thank you, Lisa. We can now vote for all of them together. Roll call.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 13 pass.
Certificated personnel, item 22, 1 through 33. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Marqueta will second.
Is there a discussion from the board? Hearing
Mr.
none?
Weber?
Yes?
If I can just point out on number 5C, there is, we have an administrative correction.
Okay.
So we have the name filled in on the administrative correction, Kayla Diorio.
This is, item C is a change, or we're adding an additional item?
We're not adding it, we just filled in the motion, it was not completed.
All right.
You have a separate, they have a separate page, correct? You have a separate page that has the personnel item number 5, letter C.
Okay. All right, thank you. Roll call.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 33 pass.
Item 23, non-certificated personnel transportation, items 1 through 7.
Lent will move it.
Thank you. Weber will second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 7 pass.
All right, while we're talking about transportation, Joe, is there any improvement in our ability to get drivers, or?
Very, very slightly.
Okay. Well, it's an improvement. Good. All right. Transportation. Item number 24, transportation, 1 through 7. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Lent will second.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 7 pass.
All right. And we are to 9. Supplies, equipment, and services. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Lent will second.
All right, we're voting on items 1 through 9. Is there any discussion on those items? Hearing none. Roll call.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Abstain on 6, yes for the rest.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 9 pass.
Okay. Board Secretary and Board Business. Miscellaneous. Oh, sorry, miscellaneous, missed that page. Items 1 through 8. Is there a motion?
Giordano motion.
Weber will second. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
And Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 8 passed.
And item 27, is there, no, nothing, all right. Hearing of the residents on any school district issue.
Jen D'Antuno, Old Bridge, and I apologize, it's the wrong time. I'm PTA president of Memorial, and we've had parents concerned over the condition of the blacktop, and at field day, we had some holes and divots in the grass in the field. So I was wondering when the board addresses that. Ever since my oldest has been in kindergarten, the blacktop has never been resurfaced. There's always been divots and potholes and things like that. On wet, rainy days, the kids walk in circles because they're not allowed to run because the puddles are too big and things like that. So are the grounds of our schools going to be fixed and taken care of? And on Facebook, residents are talking about, the conditions of, the kids aren't allowed to play on playgrounds because some of them are too old. Memorial has a very nice playground. The kids can't play on it, and we don't know why. I've asked. We've never been told a real good answer. So recess, which is a big time for the kids to unleash and give their brains a break, the kids aren't given the adequate space to play and have that break. That's my question.
I will look into the information you're providing tonight. I've never heard it before. They couldn't go on the playground. You're talking during recess. Okay. So I'll look into that and get back to you personally on that. I do know a lot of paving projects have been going on around the district. Mr. Mara, do you have any information on any pothole and improvement for paving in various schools?
It's ongoing as we speak. I'm not aware of whether it will happen in Memorial, but I will check and we'll get back to you.
Well, if anything, might make, did sell the property at Nike, that put $10 million in our capital budget. So we're in a far better position today to probably deal with it than we were in the past.
Hi, my name is Diane Michael. I have one question. I was at the curriculum meeting last night, and I agree it's a subject matter that needs to be discussed. I'd like to address the board. If you have another meeting, last night was really like a bad episode of Maury Povich. Yeah. It really was. It was disrespectful. You allowed parents to physically confront other parents. Parents were walking around the room. I got my face screamed in. 2 police cars had to come. It was 2 hours of just disobedience. Again, I was outside, 2 police came. Maybe we could check with the officer and they'd have a report on that. Some parents spoke eloquently, and I appreciate that. But I've never felt more unsafe in my own child's school in a meeting where I belong last night. Mr. Solikowski, you were walking around that meeting like a talk show host. You were giving people's numbers about when they were able to speak or not. And I'm sorry, I'm very upset because as a community, we have to come together, but it was your meeting. So next meeting, what are you going to do about that? Thank you.
Next meeting, I'm going to have our attorney there. We're going to have a numbering system, so it won't be out of hand like last night. I apologize. But that won't happen again. Thank you.
One of the things that happened last night is we didn't have any microphones, which made it difficult for people to hear us. That will put the next meeting here, and we'd like people to register for it online so that if this room's not adequate, we can make another arrangement for a larger, more appropriate room.
You guys know me by now. My name is Darren Asatuli. Listen, I have 2 girls in the school system. I'm a parent. I'm a father of 2 girls. With all due respect, if I feel that something and my daughter's not getting treated properly, there is nobody in this room that's standing here today that's going to stop me from coming to a meeting and speaking about it. And if I'm passionate about what I say, because I feel it's affecting my child, nobody in here, no one has any right to tell me to stop. What's been happening is, I feel like the state has put together this agenda, and all we do is we put everybody on here, we put our hand on, we take an oath that if our kids are not getting treated properly and something is wrong, we still got to follow the state's rules, even if it affects my child. I am not cool with that at all. Every single child that's in this district, the reason why the board is here, the parents are here, is because we all care about these youngins, period. And I get really upset and I get heated. You know why? Because there's no relationship. Nobody here. And I think the teachers are phenomenal. And I think sometimes they get to teach things they don't like to teach. And they're forced to do certain things because the New Jersey Education Association and state funding is predicated on what goes on here and what you all approve. And even if it's not the right thing by the children, you still got to get the money. That's not cool. I'm not good with that. I come from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in public housing on welfare with a single mom. Probably nobody knows that here today. So I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to suffer. I know what it's like to grow up on the streets. And when I see and I come here, and as a parent, we can't voice our opinion, and we're upset when the New Jersey Education Association says, you know what? You parents are extremists. No, we're caring. In 2020, we saw a difference in the curriculum. To Mr. Cittadino, I spoke to you many times. And you keep saying, not much has changed. It has changed in 2020, my guy. It's 2022, 2.1 has changed. There's stuff in there that wasn't there in 2018. Am I correct? I'm just asking a simple question, right? It is. I know you're going to say you answered it before, right?
No, I'm going to say...
Go ahead. Did it change?
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
I'm saying the curriculum that we're receiving right now is 2022. It's based upon a law that changed in 2020.
Exactly.
But the existing health curriculum was in place all this time since 2017.
I have a question for you, Dave. Do you feel that it's comfortable that whatever the state says we need to teach in this district, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent for my child, you're okay with what they say, regardless if it's good or bad for the kids? Because if we don't abide by it, we lose state funding, right? Is that correct? Am I close? Do we lose state funding if we don't abide by certain guidelines? Yes or no?
I think our attorney addressed that question, yes, we are.
No, when did they address it? I'm asking, Mr. Chris, do we?
Yes, that can happen.
Okay, so that's where the problem comes in, right? I'm not comfortable with that. I can't put my hand on take an oath and say whatever the governor or whatever they say for my children is okay. If I'm not okay with that, I'm going to come here and voice my opinion. You could bring the cops. You can bring anybody you want. No one's going to stop any parent from coming here and having a conversation. And we were heated yesterday, absolutely. I saw a commercial that said, "You're an extremist, Mr. Parent." I'm a parent. I love my kids. What's wrong with that? I'm sick of hearing that, you can't do this and you can't talk and you got 2 minutes. I got the time. They're my kids. We pay taxes in this town. And we expect the board to represent, and you guys deal with a lot, every single one of you, and it's not easy. But could you imagine being home with your child? And then gentleman says, well, you say something, you get thrown out? You're not throwing me out, my guy. The bottom line is, I'm a parent. I'm not looking for trouble, but I'll tell you right now, if there's a situation that any parent in this room is not comfortable with, we should be able to come here and voice it. And if anybody has a problem with that, just let me know. Whether it's the cops, who I respect the people on the board, and I respect this community. But I will not be shut down. And any parent that's here, none of you should be shut down. That's okay. No one's see? No one's talking to you.
If you could
That's what
wrap
I'm
it up.
saying. I'm done. Thank you.
So, what are we up to?
Anybody else?
Is there anyone else from the public who cares to speak? Oh, yes. Mr.
Andrew Lewis, OBEA. Just to clarify from the last speaker, there's 2 buildings in Trenton, the Department of Education, who gives us the curriculum, who gives us the standards that the curriculum's written, and the New Jersey Education Association, which is our affiliate, which is a teachers union that has nothing to do with curriculum standards. Just to clarify, Department of Ed, NJA.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Melissa, and I have my 2 girls in 1st grade and 3rd grade. And I just want to say thank you to the board for listening to all the parents yesterday. There's a big concern, and we understand that this is state mandated, but I also understand that there are things that we can delay in teaching because they're not required to be taught until the end of 2nd grade and until the end of 5th grade. And 1 year of maturity for our children makes a really big difference. Thank you for giving them a chance.
Is there anyone else? Seeing, Jenny's back.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
That's all right,
before was the
Jenny.
time. Another Old Bridge amazing teacher has passed.
Can you just state your name?
Oh, sorry, Jen D'Antuno, Old Bridge. Florina Abramowitz was a 2nd grade Voorhees teacher. She passed yesterday. She has many adoring fans of her students on Facebook that have all been commiserating over her passing, but just to add that to our teachers that passed. Thank you.
Thank you. We will recognize her at the next meeting. Anyone else? Yes. Kelly?
Yeah, hi, Kelly Ellis Foster again. I have a question, I'm not sure if it's possible, Dr. Tui. I know you said yesterday in the meeting the lesson plans come after it's approved, right, because you have that. And I know this is probably not the best time of the year with the teachers just coming back and trying to do anything, but is there any way that you could do a few sample curriculums, just content-wise for each grade, especially for those sensitive topics, so everybody has an idea of, oh, this is what we mean of how it could be created, because while you have the content knowledge and, and then the really more technical wording, it's not necessarily how it's presented to a student. And I don't know if that would be helpful for the October meeting, that you can, this is what we mean by this. Because I think, not everybody really understands what everyone might have their own vision or idea of what a lesson would look like. And maybe that just would be helpful for a conversation of having something a little bit more tangible, that everyone can align to. Can you get on that? Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who cares to speak?
I forgot to say this before. To end on a positive note, well, this part's not positive. Unfortunately, my father passed away in April, and we had to sell his house. And the housing market lately has been insane. We got a letter from a prospective buyer begging us to choose them because of this school district. They wanted to move here because of Old Bridge Township Public Schools, and we picked them. That's saying something. You guys are doing something right. Keep it up. Build that bridge, all right? All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to close the public portion at this point.
Mr. Weber? Can I say something in response to something that a community member has said? Okay. So this is just in response, Ms. Ellis Foster, are you still here? In what you had said before, and I just wanted to reiterate that I strongly stand by what I said last night, that we can teach our children to be kind, accepting, and inclusive without being inappropriate. We teach them to get to know people without teaching them specifics about sexual topics. And just, there's hundreds of examples that we can go through, and I'll just start with something small. So my kids have 2 aunts, just perfectly normal in our family, but they don't know how their cousins came to be. They're 11 and 8 years old, and when the time is right and when it's appropriate, we will teach them how that happens. But the thing is, we will teach them, our family will teach them. It's not something that needs to be taught in school, something so specific, but they know, and they know to be kind and inclusive and accepting of all kinds of people, no matter what, but they don't need to know the specifics about the sexual topics that are infused in this curriculum. This topic goes way deeper than being inclusive to all types of children, and it extends into infringing upon parental rights and moral values that are taught in the home. It's about letting our youth maintain their innocence and let them be kids, but it has nothing to do with kindness and acceptance. Completely different.
Business, board members?
Yes. So for those still here in the thousands watching at home, don't get too excited by my no vote. As I said before, when we discuss it again in September, if we've gone through the process of hearing what the parents have to say and things we are allowed to change, once that's done, I will be voting yes. It's worth it to fight this if it was 100% mandated, but since there is the opt-out option, I do not consider that a mandate, and I've been known for going against things that the governor has done, and this does not compare to that. The fact that you could opt out is a big part of this discussion. And I didn't get to bring it up because of the situation of the meeting, as we all know. But those that aren't in the dual enrollment, I recommend you take AP exams anyway and take CLEP exams, especially if you're about to go into college. And I'm always available by email to tell you what exams you have to take, especially if you go to schools like Kane, Rutgers, and Brookdale. I got my bachelor's in 2 years, so I have experience. I know how to work the system, and I'm probably better than most advisors at the colleges. So if you want to know how to do it, just email me. And I have something else to say in new business when that comes up. Thank you.
And he's doing it for free, too.
Yes, yes.
There'll be no increase next year. Okay, anyone else for old business? All right, Dr. Tui or Dave, whichever is more appropriate. What's the status on making the determination on the ESSA 3 money as to whether we can convert some capital into generating more ESSA funds for learning?
I think that as a question that's going to require some guidance from a conversation with maybe our grants person, someone from the grants office in the state of New Jersey, and possibly even Mr. Parton, because it's going to take some legal maneuvering to talk about how to take away, amend a grant that's already been spent, to guide it towards capital projects.
As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, have we physically spent all the money and contracted all the work for ESSER 3?
Not for ESSER 3, but for ESSER 2.
No, I'm speaking specifically
Not for
about
ESSER 3 yet, no.
And have we contacted the appropriate agency for the government that's handling the ESSER 3 to ask them what their policy position was on our request? Have we made any requests to them?
We have submitted the application, they have approved it, but we have not reached back to them to modify it.
Okay, so I would expect that we should have some information, and certainly as a board, I would prefer to see whatever their opinion is comes to us in writing. And you can do consultation, certainly, as far as I'm concerned, whatever is required to make sure that happens. Is there any other old business? Any new business?
Yes, so I think going forward, we should be going back to recording the committee meetings. I feel that that also makes the process more formal, and it makes it more professional for the people that are there. You know, obviously some people might change their behavior when they're on camera, when there's a lawyer present, when there's microphones present, than when it's not informal like it was last night. And similar to the spring semester, I will be doing night classes, so obviously it's going to affect me coming to these meetings, which, you know, the world was different 3 years ago. I did not anticipate that. So, of course, send your emails like you normally do, and I'll try to make the best out of my meeting appearances. Thank you.
Excellent suggestion. I wholly agree with you. Not about your meetings, but rather about the purpose of filming the meeting, filming the committee meetings.
We just want to, because we actually talked about today too administratively, the question would be for the board president, is it your goal to record them and post them, or televise them live? Okay, we can easily handle that. The latter, the option I wanted to give you, definitely has a different financial impact.
Understood. All right, is there anything else for new business? Is there? Go ahead.
Mr. Weber, I just want to make a clarifying statement. So on April 29th, my administrative superintendents and myself from the county, we held one of our meetings in Piscataway, and we had the ability that day to have the Commissioner of Education join us virtually with the topic of concerns coming out of the school districts. One of the topics I brought up to her was this curriculum. And again, as person put in place to oversee your children's education, like we've talked about, people have mentioned about teachers not imparting their opinion into instruction, I'm not going to impart my opinion on the curriculum. But I did impart my thoughts to the Commissioner of Education that not just Old Bridge, that New Jersey school districts and communities were just healing from the divisiveness that happened during the pandemic. And I did not feel that this was the time to put forth such a polarizing curriculum that could wait a year, could wait some time to have more input from the public. Obviously, you know, behind the scenes, our requests fell on deaf ears, and it was pushed down to us. Certain things like, you know, again, the Start Strong, we're going to mandate it to have the Start Strong assessments coming out in September, but we haven't received the NJSLA assessments that we just took in the spring yet. So having two sets of data, having another test before you even get the first data really doesn't even help you in assessing how a student's doing. So there's certain things that we object to, and we we try to use our influence to change. That doesn't always work out to our benefit. I'm glad the board took a position tonight of this nature. Again, I think for my administrative team, I talked, to we're indifferent to this process. We know we have a job to do. You hire us to do a job. You gave us a directive to present you with a curriculum that gave flexibility to parents of an opt-out. We did that. We're proud of the work that the teachers did, Mr. Domino did, and Dr. Tui's office did. And we'll continue to support the board in these endeavors. The last comment was in reference to having civil discourse and having people come together with different opinions. I love that, people having different opinions. I have different opinions within my own family dynamics and conversations, but to treat each other well and treat each other with respect. I disagree that it was completely done last night. No one can say that was done. And yes, I did ask a police officer to arrive on the scene only after one member from the public verbally said to another, "I will shove a book down your blank throat."
Fortunately, without microphones, I didn't hear that.
That was, I was all there across the room and I heard it. That was the second threat I heard that evening. And while it's not my meeting, as the superintendent of schools, I'm responsible for the safety of everyone when they enter our schools, whether it be an adult, whether it be a visitor. And I would be responsible and liable if something happened to one of the people here who were not protected from being able to have their opinion heard without having someone threaten them. So that's why the police arrived. That's why there's additional security and police officer here tonight. Just
And
to
that's
offer that
why I
display.
think the cameras will bring back a lot of civility as well.
And I've said this before when we have these conversations. Last night was different. It's a curriculum meeting. It's a library. It's all adults. But I want everyone to remember, this room is interesting. This is an extension of a classroom. This is not just a meeting hall. This isn't town hall. Behind the blue wall here are students. They're minors. They're here to learn as part of an extension of their classroom. This is a working, learning relationship for them. So just be cognizant of that. We can have civil discourse. We can disagree. But when we're still talking about protecting our kids and what they hear in the classroom, we don't want to doing the adverse thing here and representing ourselves poorly here to the point where at past meetings we had to have them escorted to their cars because they didn't feel safe. So just keep that in mind every time you step in this room. It's a classroom. It's not a meeting hall.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Marqueta will move it.
Lentoul second. Aye.
Will be recorded and civil.